After the planning process, we're ready to start the pre-wire.
Now, pre-wire rough-in work is divided into a number of simple steps. Install the rough-in panels and outlet hardware, prepare the cable runs, drill the holes, pull and label the cable and secure it, and finally protect the pre-wire until trim out.
This is most of the hardware and cable that we'll be using for the rough-in. We've got cable hangers, back boxes, panels. I've got cable on big spools, and I've got a lot of wire in boxes.
You name it, we got it.
Yeah, I guess we do. We'll describe how the equipment is installed as we go along.
And we'll also be using the equipment and cable schedule we made during the planning process to know what to install and where.
Well, why don't I get started with the panels?
Great. I'll take the rough-in outlet hardware.
Okay, sounds
All right.
good.
Rich starts by mounting the first of two 50-inch enclosures. On the bottom, he removes the knockout for the electrical junction box. Then he removes the three knockouts on the top, since we'll be routing all the cables out the top.
Hey Grayson, can you give me a hand? Okay, I'm ready for the panel.
Rich positions the enclosures between two studs at a convenient working height, leaving at least 12 inches of clearance above and below,
I'm going to shoot in the top screw.
and secures it in place with wood screws.
Good.
The screw slots allow the enclosure position to be adjusted so it's flush with the back of the studs. Once both 50-inch enclosures are mounted, we install grommet strips around the knockout holes to prevent cable jacket damage. Next, Rich installs a 28-inch enclosure. He removes the top knockouts and the electrical junction box knockout. We mount this panel with a bottom aligned with the two 50-inch panels and install grommet strips in the knockout holes. When the panels are secured, we enlist the help of the electrical contractor to install a dedicated 15-amp branch circuit wired through the junction box of each enclosure. We also install a number 10 copper ground conductor between the grounding lug on each panel and run it to the house grounding electrode at the service entrance. While Richard's mounting the distribution panels, the crew and I are going to start mounting the outlet rough-in hardware. And I'm going to start with this outlet here in the master bedroom. Now, while you can use regular electrical boxes for your rough-in, these open back boxes provide a lot more room for the cable. And they have little mounting ears to attach the cable, or in this case, flexible conduit. They come in 1 and 2 gang versions and just simply nail on just like any other outlet. You could also use these metal or plastic mud rings, as they're called. Carlin also makes this little sidecar device that has mounting ears and a little adhesive pad that allow you to attach it to the side of an existing electrical box. This lets you co-locate your low voltage outlet with the electrical outlet, obviously very handy. Now they also make a version that molds the low voltage side right onto the side of an electrical box. This is great if you can get the electrical contractor to mount these where you need them. Another company makes this metal ring that also attaches over an existing electrical box, nails to the stud, and provides 1 or 2 places for your low voltage wiring as well. Now, when mounting standalone rough-in devices, keep the height above the floor consistent with the existing electrical boxes or light switches that are already in the room. If there are no nearby electrical boxes, the default recommended height for outlets is 12 inches from the subfloor. The height's usually measured from the subfloor to the lower outlet hole. 48 inches for volume controls, switches, and keypads, and 58 inches for consoles and keypads with a graphic display. Most of the rough-in boxes we'll be mounting will be standalone, such as this single gang box that Rich is mounting. But at several locations, we'll be using the rough-in bracket that snaps onto existing electrical boxes. Remember that anytime you co-locate low voltage wiring with high voltage wiring, they must be separated by a non-metallic barrier. Rich and I continue to mount rough-in boxes at tag locations. Here, Rich attempts to nail a double gang box in the entertainment shelf area. Well, at least he tries. He has better luck with the snap-on boxes. We mount a combination high and low voltage outlet rough-in the top of the hall closet, where the wireless access point will be located. And at wall phone locations, we mount mud rings at a convenient height for the phone. We also mount rough-ins for the cameras. This one in the kitchen and great room area, and outside on the front and back porch. And for the core access panel, security keypads, and volume controls.
Now earlier we drilled a hole in the roof here and put a 2-inch pipe through. This is for our cables for satellite and off air to get them up on the roof. Now we've used just standard 2-inch PVC pipe through one of these roof flashing gadgets from a home supply store. We've done an initial patch around to keep the moisture out, and the roofers will finish that off when they finish the roof. Now once we pull the cables through, we'll put them through this 180-degree bend, keep rain out, and when we're done pulling the cables, we'll stick some insulation up there to keep the moisture out.
The access pipe is secured with a conduit clamp in the rafter space below.
And we'll paint this for UV protection as well.
At a location near the electrical service entrance, we mount a 4x4 junction box with a plastic conduit attached so it'll pass through the outside wall. This will get our TP and coax cables outside to the service provider's NID.
Well, Grayson, I think that takes care of all the rough-in hardware.
Excellent. Time to drill our cable paths, I hope.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
let's go over how we plan to run the cables.
Okay. Now take the time to plan your cable routes.
Well, Grayson, in a single-story house, the usual strategy is to go up into the attic, fan out through the rafters, and then come down through the walls to the outlets, right?
Right. Either that or, of course, go down in the crawl space, across and up. Either way. And this house isn't going to be any different. I think what we're going to do, Rich, is go right up into the rafter space here from our panels. We got a few cables back into the garage. We're going to go kind of east and west right here for the 2 bedrooms.
Okay.
But it looks like the majority of our cables are going to go right down this hallway because most of the space is on this side of the house.
Okay, when we get to the office here, we'll branch off to the right, head into the office, and pick up the outlets here.
These, yeah. Then we can, looks like we can snake right up into this rafter space in the great room. We've got a bunch of cables that are just going to keep going straight over there to the breakfast area and then over into the kitchen.
Okay, well then we'll take a branch to the left. We'll pick one of these joist bays, put up some J-hooks to make the pole real clean.
Yeah,
when we
across here.
get to the entertainment center, we're going to do a split and we'll come down on either side of the fireplace.
That sounds good. And then it looks like from that path we can get above that glue lamb into the master suite. So we'll take keep going straight with a group of cables till we hit that far wall, branch down in that those 2 rooms, and then we can pick up our far 2 master bath.
Okay, sounds good. Well, let's drill some holes, Grayson.
Let's get drills. I love it.
Now I'm going to start by making several large holes above our panels to get all the cables down and through the knockouts. To do that, I'm going to use this 1.5-inch self-feeding bit. Now this baby makes quick work of large holes and is a real time saver.
While he's at it, Rich also makes the holes for the conduit we're going to run between the enclosures. As you can see, we later installed 1.5-inch flexible conduit between each enclosure to provide an easy path for the cabling we'll need between them. Now, if you have an attic or crawl space, we highly recommend running a 2-inch conduit from the enclosure to that space as well to make future wiring changes a lot easier. About this time, the crew for Arizona Sound and Light, the primary low-voltage contractor for the job,
How you doing?
arrived at the site to give us a hand.
Steve, glad you can make it to the job here.
Hi, I'm Rich.
How you doing, Rich? I'm Eric.
Well, we got all the hard work done. Come on, we'll show you the rest of the job. Now, we've gone ahead and installed the panels. This is going to be mostly voice and data.
This is our RF, all the coax is going to go in here, and this is going to be security, and the termination for that A-bus stuff is going to go in this panel. And then we'll label them DC1, DC2, DC3.
So this is your cable schedule.
All right.
Okay.
All right, and everything is laid out by wire ID number. You've got your destinations and origins, and then we've got the outlet boxes right
Eric ought to
here.
look over
And then
it.
this will have labels on the other end, right?
Absolutely, the labels from the box matches the other end, and they go right on down the line.
Okay.
So you guys can just fan out to the two rooms. We've got a few cables in the garage, but mostly it's all down the hallway there.
We've got one trunk already run heading
Yeah.
toward the master bedroom. It follows these J-hooks. Let's take a look at this and see if we can get started.
Yeah.
If you look up here, we got one there, we got one here, then we come over this way.
I like to make all the holes for the cable first, then pull the cables. I'm going to start with the drilling for the outlets here in the kitchen area up into the rafter space. There are a few important rules and tips for picking the best cable path. First, keep your cables out of the way of other services and trades.
Don't run cable through holes occupied by electrical wiring, plumbing, water or sewer lines, or gas lines. Movement or vibration of pipes can damage your cable. Do not run your cable next to electrical wiring. Try to keep at least 6 or more inches away to avoid noise pickup.
Now, drilling a hole always weakens a support member, so use the smallest hole that will allow a loose pull of the cables. This 1-inch hole made with an auger bit is fine for 2 Cat 5 and 2 RG6s.
While you can use paddle bits for holes up to 1 inch, they're painfully slow and take a lot of work to push the bit. Self-feeding auger bits are the best choice for hole sizes from 1/2 inch up to 1 1/4 inch. When you've got to spend a lot of time making holes, they do most of the work for you. For large holes from 1 1/4 to 2 1/2 inch, we highly recommend the Milwaukee Hole Hog self-feeding bits. While I'm working in the kitchen, Rich starts on the cable run to the NID.
Remember, holes in studs can't be closer than 1 1/4 inch to the edge of the stud without using a guard plate. This limits you to a centered 1-inch hole. For a standard 2x4, the code limit is a 1 3/8 inch hole for load-bearing studs and 2-inch for non-load-bearing studs. If the hole is closer than 1 1/4 inches, a 1/16 inch steel plate prevents sheetrock screws or nails from damaging your cable.
Holes in joists have to be 2 inches or more from the top or bottom of the joist, and not bigger than 1 1/2 inch in a 2x6, up to 3 inches maximum in a 2x10 or larger. Rich and I and the ASL crew continue to drill the necessary holes we'll need for each cable run, making sure each path will be in an enclosed space. Since we'll also be doing the security system install, Eric works his way around the house, making all the necessary door and window sensor holes. If you're doing your installation in a steel-framed house, the metal framing members will already have cutouts for the cables. But you must protect the cable from damage by sharp metal edges with a bushing or grommet fastened in place prior to installing the cable. These come in many shapes and sizes and can be obtained from electrical supply stores.
Once we have the holes drilled, it's time to pull the cable. To make this job easier, more reliable, and neater, we're going to mount some of these cable pulling aids, hooks, loops, pulleys, throughout these roof rafters. It takes a little extra time up front, but will make the pulls go a lot quicker and keep the cable from getting hung up on all the cross bracing.
Since nearly all cable runs from the distribution panels will be pulled down this rafter space over the central hallway and branch either to the side bedrooms or go into the rafter space over the great room, we're going to mount a series of 4-inch J-hooks every 4 feet or so. These hooks have pulleys to make long cable pulls much easier. As each cable bundle is pulled, the bundle can be dropped down into the J-hook out of the way of the next pull. Additional 4-inch hooks are installed in the great room rafter space to handle the cables to the master suite area. We also install a series of double hooks across the great room rafter space for cables to the kitchen and breakfast area.